Hi everyone, and welcome to our first lesson for Advanced Math Concepts. So we're going to take a look in our unit encompassing operations on polynomials and quadratic functions. I do just want to establish a color coding system that we're going to be using in terms of questions that are required of you, and then questions that we're going to be doing as a class. So questions that we're going to do as a class, I'm going to highlight over in yellow, and then questions that you are expected to do on your own, whether that is during our class time or after class time, depending how long it takes you to watch the videos. So yellow is going to be together as a class, and then the ones that are colored in pink are going to be the ones that you're expected to do on your own. So when I randomly check notes and things of that nature, these pink problems that are highlighted over in pink need to be completed, right? Because that is your classwork in addition to whatever isn't done in class. All right, so let's just get started. So we're going to be talking about orders of operations and then the number properties. So you probably remember hearing the word or the phrase PEMDAS, which is to please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. That's just a little acronym which you probably heard about in middle school, which also stands for, obviously, we have parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, and then addition or subtraction. So if we do these in the wrong order, we will get this wrong. All right, so let's just start off with the first exercise and we'll walk through this together. Okay, so we're going to do exercises 1 through 3 together, and then I will decide which ones you're going to complete on your own. And let's just get started. So for the first one, again, following our order of operations with PEMDAS, let's just write that out. PEMDAS. Okay, multiplication and division come first, and then addition and subtraction. So immediately I see there's subtraction, but we have to do the division first because of what PEMDAS says. So we're going to first divide negative 12 by 2. So I'll have 15. 12 divided by 2, that's 6, but there's the minus out front. And then we're just going to continue to solve this as is, which is just 9. All right? If I take a look at exercise 2, so again, following our order of operations for PEMDAS, let's see what operations we have. So I have subtraction, division, and addition. PEMDAS says we have to do the division first, and then the multiplication and division. So first I have 30 minus 10 divided by 5 is 2, plus 12. 30 minus 2 is 28, plus 12, we end up getting 40. Okay, so again, I just read this from left to right once I had subtraction and addition, because PEMDAS says addition and subtraction are interchangeable, but we should be following the correct order from left to right. Okay, let's take a look at exercise 3. Okay, so for exercise 3, again, we're following our order of operations for PEMDAS. And I like to write it like this because multiplication and division are interchangeable, likewise with addition and subtraction. So first I see I have multiplication here, but before the multiplication, notice how there are 2 exponents of a 2 and a 3 here. So I'm going to deal with my exponents first, and then I will deal with the multiplication. So exponent first. All right. Well, 5 squared, that's 25. I'll rewrite everything else. Minus 3 cubed. Well, 3 times 3 is 9. 9 times 3 is 27. Minus 5. And then just following our orders of operations, we're going to multiply the 25 by 6 first, which is going to be 150. And then I'm going to combine my negative 27 and negative 5, which is negative 32. And then I'm just going to combine like terms, which I end up getting 118. Okay, so you guys can do exercises 4 and 5 on your own. Again, when I end up doing a notes check, I'm expecting these to be done. So I will post the final solution, the final answer here without the solution. You have to show the work. So if you hand in a notes paper with just these answers without any worked out solution, you're not going to be getting full credit for your notes. Remember, coursework grading is a part of your grade. Okay. So next what we should talk about are the different kinds of properties. So we have like the commutative property, associative property. So these are properties you definitely learned about in algebra. They probably reiterated them again in algebra 2, but they are important properties to know. So we're bringing it back. So the commutative property, if you think about the word commute means to move around, right? If I have a commute from home to work, I'm moving from one place to the other. So the commutative property, we have that the order in which you multiply or add does not matter. Okay, all we're doing is just changing the order, and it's not going to make any kind of effect on the outcome. So if I have 5 plus 3, I can rewrite that as 3 plus 5. All right, and hopefully you get the idea here. You can fill this one out over here on the right. All right, so just as a reminder, what is highlighted in pink is what's required for you to do on your own. Okay, let's see, the associative property, so that's where a change in the grouping of the numbers does not matter. Okay, so again, I can change the grouping, whatever is in parentheses, I can change where the parentheses are, and it doesn't make a difference, so it doesn't matter. So if I have 3 times 4 times 6, again, now I'm changing the grouping of the parentheses, so instead of being around the 4 and the 6, I now want it around the 3 and the 4. All right, and then again, you guys can figure out what this is going to look like over here. All right, now for the distributive property, everybody should probably be familiar with this. This is where every element in the parentheses, okay, every element in the parentheses is multiplied to the element outside. So if I were to take a look at this example here, I have 5 times parentheses 3 plus 2, so we're going to distribute the 5, which is the element on the outside, into the elements on the inside of the parentheses. So I'll end up with 5 times 3 times 5 times 2, and then this is just another example. There's nothing for you to fill in there. All right, moving right along. Let's talk about some more properties. There are a bunch, but you'll get used to them as we go. The additive inverse. So all that is we're just adding the number and its opposite. So if I take the number and take the opposite of that number, in the end it's going to equal 0. So if I have 5 and negative 5, in the end their result will be 0. So similarly here, a and negative a, so I have a and negative a, sum those together and I get 0. So these two together are make up the additive inverse. So the opposite of a is negative a. Okay, the addition property of equality, or the additive property of equality, and it honestly sounds like what it says, the additive property of equality. We're adding the same number to both sides of the equation. So we're going to add the same number to both sides of an equation to keep the equation true. So here, if I'm trying to get x alone, I'm probably going to want to add both sides by 5. Again, this is called the addition property of equality because of what I do to one side, I must do to the other. All right, these are, again, your just general basic rules of doing math by hand. If I take a look at the additive identity, if I add 0 to any number, it's not going to change the value of that number. So in this example here, 5 plus 0 is 5, so 0 is our additive identity. I can add anything by 0, and it's going to keep the number the same. And you can fill this part on your own over here. Hopefully it's pretty self-obvious, though, of what goes there. The multiplicative inverse. Multiplicative inverse, you guys have heard of this before. When getting fractions out of an equation, you always multiply by the reciprocal. So multiplying by the reciprocal. So in order for me to get rid of this 1/3, I want to multiply it by 3 over 1 in order for it to equal 1. Similarly over here, w, so over here, w times what gets me to 1? We'll take the reciprocal of w over 1, which is 1 over w. Okay, and we're almost done with our definitions. We have the multiplicative property of equality. Again, this is really just saying what I multiply to one side, I must do to the other, similar to the additive property of equality. So if I multiply by the same number on both sides, so this is on both sides of an equation or an equal sign, it's going to keep the equation true. So if I'm trying to solve for x here, I'm going to probably want to multiply by the reciprocal of 1/2. And the reciprocal of 1/2 is 2 over 1, and we have to do that on both sides to satisfy this property. All right, almost there. The multiplicative property, this just says if I multiply any number by 1, it's going to keep the number the same. So -4 times 1 is going to be -4. And over here I have b times 1 is going to keep it at b. So 1 is the magic number here. That is the key in the multiplicative identity. You can multiply any number by 1 and it stays the same. The zero product property, so this just says if I multiply any number by 0, it's always going to be 0. So if I have 2 times 0, I get 0. And then I have y times 0, I'll get 0. All right, now that I've done a whole lot of talking here, why don't we take a look at some practice problems of all of those definitions. All right, so I'm going to highlight over the ones that I'm going to do, and you're going to do the rest. All right, so I'm going to do the ones that are in yellow, and then you will be doing the ones on your own time on the ones in pink. So the associative property of multiplication, remember, associative means that the order is not going to change, but the grouping of the numbers may change, so wherever those parentheses are. Now this is talking about of multiplication, so I should start running through my answer choices and seeing what I can get rid of. This doesn't have multiplication, this does. This has division and multiplication, so we'll leave that. This has addition, this has multiplication, addition. This is the distributive property, I can already tell, because I have my outside element is being multiplied by the inside elements. And this is multiplication, we'll keep that, and this is addition. Okay, so I've narrowed it down to a few choices already of what I can look at. So I have B, C, E, and H, or what are possibilities for number 1. Now the associative property, remember we said, of multiplication means that the grouping of the multiplied numbers is going to change. Not the order of the numbers, but the grouping. So here I have 3 times 1 equals 3. Well, that has nothing to do with the associative property. I have 3 times 1/3 is equal to 1. Again, there's no change in grouping of parentheses on either side. Here I have 3 times 4 is equal to 4 times 3. Now here, the order changed. I don't see any grouping symbols moving, right? There are no parentheses here as it is, and the order changed, so that's not it. It has to be this one, but let's just make sure. Well, here I have 10 times 4 times 2, 10 times 4 times 2. So the order stayed the same, and the grouping of the parentheses changed. So that's it. This is H. That's correct. Okay, let's just keep moving along. Let's take a look at 3. So now we're talking about the commutative property of addition. So I should be crossing off my answers. Well, you already know H was an answer, so let's get rid of that. And let's check out our remaining answers. So we have commutative property of addition. So get rid of anything that doesn't have addition. Those are out. We already said we know that that's distributive, so I'm not going to include that. Okay, the commutative property of addition. Remember, commute means to move around. So we're looking for numbers that move around. The order changes. So let's just start in order as we have been. So for A, let's see, did the order of the addition of the numbers change? Well, we have 3 plus 4 is equal to 4 plus 3. So I have 3, 4, and then 4, 3. Yeah, the order is not the same. So because the order of the numbers moved around, it's in a different order, this is the commutative property. And it is dealing with addition. So this is A. Okay, let's keep going. For number 5, we want the identity element of multiplication. Well, you have to remember the identity element of multiplication says if I multiply any number by 1, I'm going to get the same number. So we have to look at our answer choices and see which number is getting multiplied by 1 to return back to the same number. And as I look through my answer choices, the only one that I can see is B. 3 times 1 is 3. So there we go, B. Okay, moving right along. We already actually established, and I said earlier, which one was the distributive property. It's, remember, that element on the outside gets distributed into the elements on the inside of the parentheses, which was here at G. And then the inverse element of addition, well, we said if I take a number, so say I take 6, and add it by its inverse, I'll get 0. So we want to be looking at something like this, where we take a number, add it by its inverse, and I'll get back to 0. And an example of this would be at F. All right, so you guys are going to fill in the rest. Okay, and then just lastly, these are our last few exercises. I'm going to do the first one with you, and then you're going to do the rest. Okay, so for the first one, we're trying to figure out where can I insert parentheses. Yes, this is important. This is not multiple choice. Where can I put parentheses to make this statement hold true? So let's see what happens. Maybe the parentheses belong here. So I have 5 times 4 squared plus 1 equals 51. Let's see if that worked. Okay, well, 5 times 16, because we have 4 squared plus 1. I'm just following my order of operations. I can already tell this is not going to work. 16 times 5 is 80. So I have 81 equals 51, so that's no good. Okay, so that didn't work. What else can we try? Maybe let's try putting parentheses around the 4 squared. So now I have 2 plus 3 times, I have 16, and that is plus 1 equals 51. Let's see if this is going to work out. I have 2 plus, well, 3 times 16 is 48, and then plus 1 equals 51. 48 plus 2 is 50, 50 plus 1 is 51, so this checks out. All right, and then you guys have to do letters B and C on your own, and I'll be checking those notes probably at some point in the week. All right, you guys, talk to you tomorrow.